that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. So lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week with George Harvey and the extraordinary Tom Fennell. Okay. Every day I get up early and I look at the news. I put together a synopsis of each article that I find on energy and climate change that I think is interesting, together with a link to the article itself. And I put 10 to 15 of these at my blog, which is geoharvey.wordpress.com, Geoharvey. And Tom and I do the ones that are the most interesting, perhaps, of these.
Well, yeah, but you're not really mentioning. I mean, some of these articles are long and informative.
Yes.
And we don't have time to get into depth. We'd only be talking about one article sometimes.
Yes.
So if you see something interesting, look up George and click on the link.
Yep.
Some of these are well worth pursuing.
Some of them are really interesting. We came across one today, which is not going to be discussed in today's show because Tom didn't have a chance to look at the article. But there's an organization called the IEEFA, which is a organization that tracks energy matters for a number of nonprofit organizations, including the Rockefeller Family Trust and the Rockefeller Brothers Trust and a number of other organizations. And they did an accounting of renewable energy in the United States in March and concluded that of the electricity produced in this country in March, 19.2% came from renewable power. That includes hydro. Now, I'll point out that March is the...
So it doesn't include nuclear.
It does not include nuclear. March is the month in which renewable energy does best in this country. But
that's the March winds taking.
It's the March winds, but also the sun is giving us more power than it would in January and February, and so renewable power is but it's primarily the March winds that are doing that, and that is I really think kind of an extraordinary figure, because what it indicates next March of 2017 will be more, certainly be more. We're expecting about 12 to 16 gigawatts of renewable power to be installed in this country over the summer, and it'll probably be at least 2 gigawatts or 3 or 4 gigawatts, more than that at least, installed this year.
Well, renewables are getting cheaper, they're getting more abundant.
Absolutely.
It's just a matter of time.
Absolutely.
The economics drives the shift.
Absolutely. And by contrast, if coal is declining, the state that uses the most coal power is Texas, and renewables
They're up there using the most solar and wind as well, I think.
They are indeed. And the renewable power in Texas produced more electricity than coal in Texas in March, more. So it outpaced coal.
I can believe that, yeah.
You know?
Texas doesn't have a lot of coal.
It has a lot of coal. It's just that you don't hear about it.
No.
You'd think that, I mean, they don't pull coal out of the ground there, but they certainly...
Well, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. They have coal-burning power plants. Okay. So we will get into the week's news, starting with June 2nd. And this is an item from Penn Energy.
Get this picture up here.
There you go. Okay,
golly.
by golly. This is an interesting installation. Go ahead, Tom, and give us the title.
Well, the headline is Uni Energy Technologies to deliver the world's largest battery.
All right, this is...
And I think that might be it sitting there. Or it's one like it.
It's one like it, I believe. This is a vanadium flow battery. Uni Energy Technologies, I can't talk. Vanadium flow battery, Ronki Power, an affiliate of Uni Energy Technologies, will deploy the world's largest battery rated at 800 megawatt hours. The vanadium flow battery will provide peak shaving and enhance grid stabilization in northern China. More large batteries will no doubt be installed to support renewable power. Now, I want to point out this is big. It's really big, first of all, but it's not as big as pumped storage.
Okay.
We get much bigger pumped storage installations.
Well,
We've already got them.
They can be pretty large.
They can be. Northfield Mountain, which is just down the river from Brattleboro, where we are, can deliver 1,080 megawatts, and I don't know how many hours it can do that, but I'd be amazed if it was less than an hour. So I would think Northfield Mountain would probably be at least 4 times that size, and that's old technology.
Yeah, it is.
Northfield Mountain goes back to it was installed
at the same time as Yankee.
Yeah, it was installed at the same time as Vermont Yankee in order to do backup for Vermont Yankee. And if you think baseload power plants don't need backup, you might think about that. It's an interesting story. Okay, are we?
Well, the reasoning that they gave behind this, it's just a quick sentence: competitive price,
Yes.
lack of emissions, demonstrated longevity, operational flexibility, performance, and then securing the power supply and providing black start capabilities in the event of emergency.
That's all. Those are the only reasons they had.
It's amazing why everybody isn't doing this right now.
Well,
They will.
they will. The vanadium flow battery, flow batteries in general are interesting because they're an interesting technology. They're very unlike the kind of lead acid battery that people are familiar with, or lithium ion battery. And
yeah, we've talked about them a little bit.
we have indeed.
They're unlimited in size.
Unlimited. If you need more megawatt hours, you just put in bigger tanks.
Yeah.
If you need a bigger battery, you put in more membranes in battery, but you know that
Very scalable.
it's very scalable, absolutely. So now we're on to the next item.
I think we are.
Inside Climate News gave us this.
The New York Assembly approves a climate bill that would cut emissions to zero. Now, I don't want to be confusing here. The New York Assembly is only half of the legislature.
Yes.
It's the House of
Right.
Representatives.
Right.
So it still has to go through the Senate, which
Right.
conveniently just adjourned.
Okay, well, this is the way things work, you know. The New York State Assembly approved the nation's most ambitious climate change bill. Under the bill, New York would have to generate 27% from renewable power next year.
That's
Oh.
close.
Yep, that's close time. While that might sound high, New York just got 28% of its electricity from renewables in February. So
Okay.
their goal for the year,
They're there.
They're-
This isn't really scary.
what they need to do is to get things so that they'll go through the year as well as almost as well as they did in February.
Well, I don't know that the state in New York operates on a biennium like we do. I think they're going to be back in business in the Senate in the fall.
Oh, yeah,
So they'll
I would
probably
think.
vote on this. And
Yeah.
the governor, I think, certainly supports it.
Yeah,
So it looks like it's going to go through eventually.
yeah.
This is from the bill. It aims to prioritize the safety and health of disadvantaged communities. It creates good jobs and protects workers in communities. So there's a community service aspect of
Right,
the bill too.
and that's the way renewable energy in New York has been going in general. They've got new laws that have been passed and new ways of doing things, including community aggregate choice. So our next item comes from Bonner County Daily Bee, and yes, that is the same place where the Bonner Pass is, if you're familiar with
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
The
This
Bonner
is
Pass,
in the
right.
mountains.
Okay, easing the drought boosts California hydropower.
Yes,
For now.
indeed. Easing of California's drought has boosted the state's early spring hydropower generation to its highest level since 2011, helping to recover from a 15-year low reached last year. but hydroelectricity production is not expected to improve much overall this year. And why is that?
California is in a 4-year drought.
Which is the worst it's ever had.
I think it is.
Despite what Donald Trump says. Donald Trump said the drought doesn't exist, and when he's president, he will be able to end it like that.
Well,
so without
he's a pretty
thinking.
Smart guy. I mean, he's going to make everybody use coal.
Yeah, proven technology. Wow. He's going to have to resurrect all those coal companies that went out of business.
Well, in California this year, they had some El Nino fuel storms this spring.
Yes.
Which is what's behind the headline.
We are moving from El Nino to La Nina. Is that right? Did I get that right?
Well, yeah, you got it right, but I'm not sure what it implies.
Well, one of the things that it implies is a change in storm patterns. So the change that they have is a change from drought. And of course, one of the unfortunate things about changes of that type is you can change from a bad drought to a worse drought, but in this particular case, they are getting more water.
They're getting more water.
And the area of the Donner Pass, Donner County, has some of the deepest snows in the United States when it's got a normal snowfall, which it hasn't seen for years. So we'll see how that works. We're up to Friday, June 3rd.
Yeah, coming a little bit closer to home.
Yes.
New York State to participate in offshore wind lease auction.
This is interesting. The state itself is participating. This is from the Long Island Exchange. The New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, which is referred to as NYSERDA a lot of the time, announced that it would participate in the U.S. Department of Interior's Bureau of Ocean Energy Management auction for a commercial offshore wind energy lease off the coast of Long Island.
It's actually off the coast of New York City. It's off the coast of Queens, Rockaway Beach.
Okay.
That's about as far south and east as you can get in New York City.
Okay.
And you're not going to see this from the beach. It's a very popular beach in the summertime.
Yeah.
You can take a subway there.
Yeah.
And you have to pay to get off the subway.
Yeah, and you have to pay. They do that in Massachusetts too.
Yeah, they wanted to get extra revenue to pay for the spur out.
But for the spur, yeah,
so
and
you got to pay.
You have to pay. It's the old story of Charlie and the MTA.
Very much so. Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, Charlie couldn't get off the train, so he was condemned to ride the subway forever.
Well, what's very interesting here is that it's the state, as you mentioned, getting involved in offshore wind.
Right, right.
And it's 125 square miles, so this is going to be a big one.
This is big. Although, you remember the one that we had about an offshore wind turbine in Cleveland?
Yeah.
Right. I read this week, and it's not in this in this week's news here, but just it's mentioning it in passing. I read that will be the first offshore wind farm in the United States.
Will it really?
Will be in Cleveland.
So that prototype has proven itself, and they're going to build more of them.
I don't know. This is just somebody talking. I don't know that it's true, but I just thought that was really kind of a funny thing to read. Well, that item, by the way, came from the Long Island Exchange. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, moving along to the next one here. We're still on
offshore wind.
We're still on offshore wind.
This is from Renews.
This is Wind Float, the company, completes an offshore tour.
Right, Principal Power.
There's a picture of a wind float turbine up there, and I'm going to pull it up.
Good idea. Principal Power's 2 megawatt wind float prototype floating turbine installed 5 kilometers off Portugal completed 5 years of testing. The company said the prototype has met or exceeded all design expectations. Despite high waves and winds, WindFloat delivered 17 gigawatt hours of electricity.
They talked about high waves.
Yeah.
Waves are over 50 feet.
Yeah.
There's some big winds.
Those
big waves.
Big waves. And
waves.
These things, the thing that's extraordinary about these is that they don't have any foundation. They are floating.
They're floating. They're anchored to the bottom somehow.
Yeah.
Cable.
They're tethered, but they do not have foundations.
So they're bouncing around.
They're bouncing around. They'll rise and fall with those waves.
Well,
And
this was a pilot project. It's evidently been successful.
right,
And now, according to the article, they're going to take it home, take it apart, study it completely, and if they don't find anything bad, they're going to start building these things.
good idea. Okay, our next item is from Eddy.net, and it has to do with,
Governments target 1,000 businesses to commit to 100% renewable energy.
this is part
So
of
they're
a,
sort of leaning on the business community, aren't they?
well, and you know, it's funny because the business community is leaning on the government. Let's take the picture down and have us up there.
That would help.
People are done with the picture.
Sometimes I have an ADD moment here.
Yes. Okay. This is it's the synopsis here says a raft of new companies have pledged to source 100% renewable energy as part of the RE 100 initiative that will be galvanized by government-led push to promote renewable revolution to 1,000 businesses. The new campaign is led by Denmark and Germany. And what we've seen, as I said before, is that businesses are pushing governments. And now governments are pushing businesses. And they're all
They're
pushing in
both pushing
the
each
same
other.
direction. The governments have got their COP21 targets that they have said they would try to meet. But the businesses, a lot of businesses, are losing a lot of money because of climate change. And they don't like it. And the people who are really losing the most are people in the insurance industry, people in the banking industry. You know, I read an insurance executive who is very well known, world-class guy in insurance, said that he believed that it would not be possible to insure buildings by 2050. And what we're
What's left?
yeah, what we're talking about is a situation where we're going to have to rethink how homes and so forth are financed, or the real estate market is going to go south.
Yeah.
And it's already happening in the United States, and in fact, I would bet that it's already happening here in Brattleboro. Some of the buildings along the Whetstone have had to be given up, haven't they, because of Hurricane Irene?
Well, yeah. The whole not the Hayes Court. Melrose. The whole
Melrose
Melrose
Court.
complex.
Yeah.
Is living on borrowed time.
Yeah.
And it's a lovely little community.
Yeah.
I mean, you drive in there, it's cute, you know.
Right.
But because of the danger of flood,
Right.
they have been ordered, basically by the state, by HUD, to get
move
people out of
move
there.
out of there.
And that is why they're building up by the high school.
Right, and what that means is we've got property in Brattleboro that is in what, a 500-year flood zone?
I'm not sure.
But it's property that had been regarded when it was first built, and that was not that long ago,
It's being pretty dry.
as being pretty dry and safe. And after Irene, they looked at it and said, wait a minute, we can't have people living there. This is too dangerous.
Absolutely.
And it's getting worse, and it's something that will affect any community that has a river going through it or a stream going through
There
it.
is movement toward addressing that issue in all of West Pratt.
Right.
Businesses, the housing, the communities, they're
Right.
all getting together
Right.
with the state. What are we going to do about this?
Right.
Because everybody knows we have to do something, but there is no exact plan.
Yes.
There are suggestions. I mean, they're not shooting in the dark here.
Well,
But they got to come up with
this is a serious problem.
Well, for example, a guy builds a store.
Yeah.
He puts up a parking lot. He paves the parking lot. And all of a sudden, the water flow patterns change. Instead of rain soaking into the grass that used to be there, it's rushing off into the brook.
Right.
This kind of stuff is what they're talking about.
Well, what's also happening is the brook that never really flooded the way that it has recently is starting
Partly because
to
of exactly
flood.
that.
And there are places, I've read that there are places in North Carolina where you cannot get a mortgage for a house in a 500-year flood zone. And there are
Well, there's oceanfront property that's that's
it
not being sold.
because it
They
can't
can't get insurance.
it can't be insured. So if you want
Can't
to
get insurance, can't get a loan.
Yeah, if you have enough money to buy the property and you are willing to live without insurance, you can live on the shore in Florida in a mansion and
cheap.
have very few neighbors, and the property would be cheap, and you're just going to have to live with the fact that next time a hurricane hits, you're going to have to evacuate and hope that the thing is still there when you get back.
Good way of putting it. It's just exactly on the money.
Yep. Okay.
Let's move a little farther afield here.
This is Clean Technica.
Australia's momentum continues to build toward renewable energy target.
According to analysis published this week by Australia's Clean Energy Council, momentum is building for the country's renewable energy sector. To meet the 2020 target, approximately 6,000 megawatts of new capacity must be installed. 10,600 megawatts of projects have been approved, and more is coming. It looks like
they're on top of it.
Yeah, this is really, Australia is such a topsy-turvy place. The federal government is not supporting renewable energy. Under Tony Abbott, it was antagonistic, and now under Turnbull, it's barely less antagonistic.
There's a statement about that in this article.
Yeah.
Looking forward, let's see. Quick to praise the article.
Mm-hmm.
The analysis. Quick to praise the supposed momentum of the industry has recently garnered, including a somewhat misleading belief that a new prime minister that is more supportive of renewable energy.
Yes.
When really all Australia really has is a prime minister who is not as vitriolically anti-renewable.
Yeah, but the states in Australia,
Victoria,
many of them,
Wales.
a number of them, and many, there's not that many states in Australia. And the states they have are bigger than Texas in many cases, most cases perhaps. But they have some very interesting things going on in some of the states. And you know, this thing that happened in Tasmania it's going to be very interesting to see what they do in Tasmania.
Is this the cable thing?
Yeah, they had almost all their power was coming from that cable, 40% from the cable, and then a lot of power was coming from hydro. They were like 90 some odd percent renewable, and then all of a sudden they had a drought, so they weren't getting as much hydropower, and the cable broke. So they had to set up diesel generators all over the place. You know, it was pretty sad. And now there are people in Tasmania who are saying they want to have wind and solar in order to make sure that they've got power if there's another problem like this, because it can happen again.
If I understand, Tasmania is an island.
Yes, it's a
off
big,
the coast.
big island.
It's about as big as New England.
That's my guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And
it has a couple million people.
Oh, it's well popular.
And it looks, the photo,
looks like a pretty place.
It looks like a very pretty place, you know. I can tell you because I saw a photograph of it. They grow apples in Tasmania. It looks like a very pleasant place to live, although it does look like it could get cold in the winter. Okay, should we go on?
I think we should.
That, by the way, was from Clean Technica. So we're up to Saturday, June 4th.
Well, we're talking about Mount Everest now.
Mount Everest. There's a picture of Mount
Glaciers.
Everest. Let's put the picture up.
I'll put it up.
Yeah, let's do that.
Duh.
There you go. There's Mount Everest.
There's some mountain climbers in Mount Everest.
Well,
which is what people do.
Yeah, this has a note on it that said it is a representational image, which is, I think, something that's noted on Indian.
It was mentioned. I saw that.
Yeah, Indian news things where the picture represents what the story is about, but it's not actually taken
the actual story.
Of the story. So,
well, what the story starts out as is glaciers in the Everest region could shrink by 70%.
70%. Just think about that.
Even disappear.
Even disappear. Scientists say climate change is causing Himalayan glaciers to melt at an alarming rate, creating huge glacial lakes, which could burst their banks and devastate mountain communities. The surface area of one lake grew from 0.4 of a kilometer to 1.01 square kilometer to 1.01 square kilometers between
That's 250%, by the way.
Yeah, 1984 and 2009. And of course what happens is you get to a point where these lakes are so big that they
that's a backstory here, but it's a big one.
Yeah. They
They're
could
getting very large.
they could break out of
Yeah.
their areas, all of a sudden open up ravines,
Flood 50 miles downstream.
and flood villages downstream and kill people. You know, we're talking about the Jonestown flood here, except it's in the Himalayas.
The number I have for the article is more than 56,000 people are living in the villages that they're talking about.
Yeah, lots of villages.
Nepal is home to some 3,000 glacial lakes, of which 7 are regarded as high risk.
Wow, 7. Yeah,
They're pretty big lakes, and they're filling up fast, and the Nepalese, they're trying to abate these things. I'm not sure they even have the money.
Huh. Well, our next item, that by the way was from the Deccan Chronicle. Our next item is from Utility Dive.
Utility dive. Microgrid capacity to exceed 3.7 gigawatts by 2020. That's in the U.S., by the way.
That's in the U.S. Microgrid capacity in the U.S. will reach 3.71 gigawatts by 2020, an increase over GTM Research's predictions last year, which called for 2.85 gigawatts in a base case scenario. The new estimates, however, exceed even last year's high-end predictions. This is a report from, based on a report from Green Tech Media Reports. And Green Tech Media is a well-respected organization. And what they're saying is that from 2.85 to 3.71 gigawatts is a big increase. And
it's all voluntary here or there, haphazard.
It's pretty haphazard. I don't know that there's any particular government support, especially aimed at microgrids.
I haven't heard of any myself.
But they are really, really useful for a place where people want to have a knowledge that their power is going to be there.
If something big happens and the grid is down for any length of time, at least principal buildings like hospitals and schools will have power. At the very least.
At the very least.
They're working these things up. Presently in Brattleboro, there's enough capability to actually run 2 separate microgrids.
And there are people who are trying very hard to get them set up.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
Matter
those
of fact,
would
this week coming up, I believe, is someone from Green Mountain Power coming down to address the Energy Committee on storage batteries.
On storage
which
batteries,
would be
and
part of
I wish we had a date for that, because that would be an open meeting. Anybody could come to it. But
I think it's next Tuesday, but I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. I don't have it.
Now,
No, I didn't bring my PDA.
okay. The Energy Committee meetings, like all of the committee meetings in Brattleboro, are open to the public.
Open, yeah.
So people who are interested in that could come and watch.
But this is not the standard Energy Committee meeting. It's a special meeting.
It's a subcommittee.
Yeah, but it's a special meeting.
It's a special meeting. It's not a normal meeting.
I plan on being there. I guess you do too.
I do. Although, I as you know from Monday, Tom came to my door, bang, 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 bang. We're supposed to be on the radio. I tell people, I forget things. I do. I just forget things.
I'm glad I don't.
But it's not age. It's just what they call a personality defect. And I remember when I was 13, looking for half an hour. I spent half an hour looking for a pencil I was holding in my left hand. So there it is.
I read about a stunt recently.
Yeah?
Somebody walked into a subway train in New York City without his pants on.
Oh, really?
Which apparently happens frequently enough that it's not even in the news anymore.
Yes.
At the next stop, somebody else walks in without his pants. After about 5 or 6 stops, there's a half a dozen guys in there without pants.
Really?
And then a woman comes in selling pants.
This sounds like a
stunt.
This sounds like a cartoon.
No, it really happened,
It was a
but
stunt.
it was a stunt. Yeah.
Okay. That reminds me of a stunt that was done to advertise the Hotel St. George, which was in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And what they did was they had the advertising agency, was contacted. They needed to advertise, and the agency said, What you need is something that, are you willing to do something that will get you a lot of advertising for cheap, but taking the risk that you won't get anything?
Okay.
And they said, yeah, we'll go with that. So what they did was they hired an actor to ride in a suit of armor with a big shield that said Hotel St. George on it, up and down Fifth Avenue. And
sounds like a good stunt.
yeah, with a lance. And at the end of a week, the actor went around a corner, dropped his lance accidentally, and put it through the radiator of a taxi cab. And this, of course, was St. George slaying the dragon. And it was all over the papers, all over the country. So a good stunt will get you some...
Sometimes it works pretty well, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
Our next item comes from CanadianManufacturing.com. And this is an interesting picture.
We've talked about this project before.
A lot. Yeah, go ahead, Tom. What's the title on the...
Well, it's about Dubai.
Yeah.
Even though that picture is from California.
Right.
Dubai plans the world's largest concentrated solar project.
Yeah, now they're planning the world's largest, and what you're seeing in the picture is
presently the world's
largest, which is in California.
Yes,
the Dubai,
that's the Even-Paw solar power facility, which is currently the world's largest.
Right. The Dubai Electric and Water Authority announced plans to build the world's largest concentrated solar project. The site, about 50 kilometers outside the city center, already houses PV technology. The first 200 megawatt project is scheduled to be completed by 2021. Now, interesting thing in this picture, if you take a look at the picture and you look at the kind of dark green area, green, well, it's dark area.
In the upper left.
In the upper left, and you see that there's some funny articulation of open areas within that, and I looked at that and I thought, my gosh, that looks like a golf course. Well, it turns out it is a golf course. It's the Prim Valley Golf Club, which is an important golf course. It's got 36 holes. 36 holes in that.
Large golf course.
And that gives you an idea of how big the Ivanpah Power Facility is. And the thing in Dubai is going to dwarf this.
Well, if you look at that picture, just because of the way the sun is located and the way the reflectors are going,
right,
you're seeing basically half of them at a time, because the other half are facing away from you.
Right, yeah.
But they're arrayed in a circle around a tower in each case.
And if you look closely at the picture, you can kind of see how they're arrayed.
Yeah, you can.
Sort of.
Yeah, you can.
But the near ones are all the same color, more or less, as the desert itself. Okay, should we go on from there? Or do you have something to...
No, I guess we're done on that.
Okay, so we're up to
moving
Sunday,
to the
June
next one.
5th. Okay, and what we have here... Oh, come on, let's get going here, computer. There we go. What we have here is from CNN.
Hawaii
Hawaii.
has a serious trash problem, and it's coming on ocean waves.
Yep.
And there's a picture of a beach in Hawaii, and it's not a very pretty beach.
Not a very pretty beach, and all that junk came from California, Japan, places in Polynesia.
Yeah. It's just people just throwing stuff out their boat and
out their boat, out their wind, throwing it in their backyard, and it gets picked up by water, run down into the river, down the river to the ocean, across the ocean to Hawaii. And this thing is, well, let me read what it says here. Vast amounts of trash have been washing up on Hawaii's once pristine beaches. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has been trying to keep critical parts of the ocean clear of marine debris, but more keeps coming, much of it plastic, most carelessly tossed away. And the study that they did a study that on this thing, and the study that they did was funded at least partly by the government of Japan, because they wanted to know what was happening to pollution from Fukushima.
Wasn't Japan getting kind of blamed for this?
I don't know if they were or not.
But they wanted to make sure they weren't.
Well,
they wanted to find out.
There were some things that they were blamed for, and one of them was boats that came washing up after that tsunami, which is not really their fault, but
There's a sentence here that says it's not just small bits of plastic making its way to Hawaii's coast. Large items like tires, buoys, and even abandoned fishing boats
Yeah,
are
but
showing up on shore.
one of the
This one
things
may
that's-
not have even been abandoned.
right, this was one of the things that's really distressing about this, and you can't see it in the picture. A lot of the plastic is tiny. There are
Yes.
pieces of plastic that are used in cosmetics, and they're so small you can barely see them. But tiny fish will eat them, and
But it is still not known what happens when we eat those tiny fish.
we get
And
pieces
we
of
get the
plastic.
tiny plastics.
Yeah, we get the tiny plastics. The tiny fish are eaten by bigger fish, which are eaten by bigger fish, which are eaten by bigger fish, which we eat. It reminds me of a song called In Elkli Mor Batat, which means in Elkli Mor, the moor surrounding the town of Elkli. Batat is a is a Yorkshire dialect. For it is actually but hat, and it means without a hat. So in Elkli Mor Batat is in Elkli Mor without a hat, and the verses go: "Thou's been a courtin' Mary Jane." Or actually, where hast thou been since we saw thee? Thou's been a courtin' Mary Jane. Thou's going to catch thy death of cold, because you're out in the moor without a hat. Then we shall have to bury thee. Then worms will come and eat thee up. Then ducks will come and eat the worms. Then we shall have to eat the ducks. Then we shall all have eaten thee. Well, this is the chain. The fish eat the plastics. Other fish eat those fish. Other fish eat those fish. We eat the big fish, and what do we get? Well,
It's unknown.
it's unknown. And some of it is plastics that are broken down. Anyway,
Well, let's move along.
let's move along. And we have a picture on this one too, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
There we go.
There we
Look
go.
at that.
Let's get that.
This is from NDTV.
Alaska's huge climate mystery
Big
and
clue.
its global consequences.
Wow.
And it says Alaska has 18% of the area of the U.S. and 53% of the carbon.
And a lot of that is because of methane that will come from permafrost,
permafrost, right.
as it melts. While Alaska's boreal forest region is expected to see bigger wildfires that set up large amounts of carbon, and while permafrost will certainly degrade to some extent, other parts of Alaska are simultaneously expected to green up. And this could
It's an
make
interesting development.
Alaska into a carbon sink. So, you know, there's the good and the bad, and this is not just true of Alaska. It's
Well,
true.
they're not sure of all of the evidence yet,
Yeah,
but it appears that at least in one scenario, Alaska isn't going to be contributing to global warming. It's going to be helping to mitigate it.
yes,
Alaska is a carbon sink, it says here, if its lands, plants, waters, and so on are pulling more carbon dioxide and other greenhouses out of the atmosphere than they are putting into it.
yep,
And this study indicates that that may very well be true.
there you go. Should we go to Crane's Chicago Business?
Well, that's the next one up, isn't
That,
it?
it sure is.
Birkenstocks in Peoria. Why Caterpillar, which is located in Peoria,
Yeah,
is making a solar power push.
there you go.
This is an interesting development because
Yep.
everybody knows Caterpillar.
Yep, falling commodity prices and slowing development world economies have been hitting equipment manufacturer Caterpillar, resulting in 3 years of dropping sales to $47.01 billion last year. For Caterpillar, microgrids now represent a needed avenue for growth. These guys know how to do it, and they want to do it, so
Well, we
let them
talked
do
about microgrids happening in municipalities in here.
it. Yep,
Here, Caterpillar is building them
yeah,
and shipping them to your site.
absolutely, absolutely. Okay.
So it's solar energy, diesel fuel, and storage all in one container.
Yep, there you go. All in one container. You can set it up. It's basically a turnkey system.
Yeah.
You can set it up and go.
They're starting to lose money. They're looking ahead and they're trying to take advantage of it.
Yep. Other companies are doing the same thing.
They mentioned Cummins.
Cummins.
Yep, they mentioned Cummins.
I saw it.
and I'm sure there's others because it sounds
Since
like a
this-
smart move.
Yeah, since this article, I saw BP was doing the same thing. They're going into wind
Who?
power. BP, British
British
Petroleum. Yeah.
Okay.
Our next item, I don't know how to pronounce the name. I'll just take a
I
stab at
was
it.
hoping you would.
No,
Let's get
you know,
this
I didn't
picture
have
up here.
I didn't have time to look it up. This is where it looks
Oh.
like Wärtsilä, but it's hard to know because it's
Aim
Finnish.
at the umlaut.
Yeah, except it isn't an umlaut.
Well, it's not an umlaut.
No, this is Finnish. If it were German, I'd be able to pronounce it, but I can't because it's Finnish. Anyway, this is from Industrial Prime.
And I'm gonna pronounce it in English.
Okay.
Wärtsilä goes solar with confidence.
There you go.
And what we're seeing in the picture there is solar panels on trackers.
Yep. Wärtsilä announced that it is to enter the solar energy business and begin to offer utility-scale solar PV solutions. Wärtsilä's new solutions include solar PV power plants of 10 megawatts and above, as well as hybrid power plants combining PV plants and internal combustion machines. Wärtsilä is a company that makes huge engines.
I didn't know who they were, and I checked them out.
Yeah.
Checked them out. They make large engines for ships.
They will make a diesel engine big enough to drive a super tanker.
Exactly.
And this is, we're talking about a lot of power. So, I mean, we're talking about internal combustion machines with piston strokes in excess of 7 feet.
Yep. That's just about right.
These are big engines.
And 20 cylinders in a row.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, the pistons are big enough that you could crawl into them, and if they were tolerably warm, you could probably put a knapsack, put a sleeping bag in there and take a nap. Okay. So, have we done with Wärtsilä? Escape the name?
I think we have. I mean, it's just another example, like we just talked about Caterpillar.
Yes,
They're
indeed.
taking advantage of an opportunity.
Absolutely. Now, our next item comes from Maine News Online. There's a picture, and I will tell you that picture is if you look at it carefully, you can see that the smokestacks in the sky are kind of carbon copies of smokestacks in the ground. So, it's a
composite
picture. Anyway, this comes from Maine News Online.
Scientists located 39 unreported sources of sulfur dioxide emissions.
Using data from satellites. They identified these from satellites, which is interesting to me. Scientists at NASA, Environment and Climate Change Canada, and 2 universities have found 39 unreported and significant human-made sources of emissions of toxic sulfur dioxide. Sulfur dioxide is known as a health hazard and a contributor to acid rain. Big contributor.
These are satellites, but this study is worldwide.
Yes.
They're not just looking at the U.S. And they found emission sources they didn't know about.
Yeah.
Clusters of coal-burning power plants, smelters, oil and gas operations found significantly in the Middle East, but also in Mexico and Russia.
Yeah.
These things are popping up all over
They're
the place.
popping up.
Nobody knew they were there.
Yep.
Well, people knew they were there, but they weren't talking about it.
Right. Okay. Our next item is from the Daily News of Newburyport.
Oh, I spent a week there one night. Court's ruling reignites controversy over carbon tax.
Yep.
Now, when people are starting to talk about carbon tax, they're going to be talking about it right here in town next week.
Last month, Massachusetts' highest court ruled the state needed to act on greenhouse gas limits. Lawmakers are considering a carbon tax which would start at $10 per ton of CO2 and rise $5 per year. Collections would be used for rebates on utility bills.
Well,
now,
there's going to be a lot of screaming in Massachusetts about this.
Yeah.
The business lobby is violently opposing it.
Oh, of course. Some of them are in favor of it. What's going to happen for an ordinary person is that $10 a ton, well, you figure if you've got a car that's getting 20 miles to a gallon of gas, that means that you are producing about a pound of carbon dioxide for every mile you drive.
Okay.
And that means that driving 2,000 miles would cost you $10 extra in your gasoline. This is not
2,000 miles
would cost you $10.
So 200 miles, which somebody might drive in a week.
Yeah.
It's going to cost you $1.
Yeah. This is not a huge deal.
It's much less scary when you talk it that way.
And the idea of rebates on the utility bills, well, this is a tax that gives from one part of the economy after
Robin Hood
when
tax.
it's a Robin Hood tax. There you go.
Well, supporters, and I think I agree with them, say a carbon tax makes using dirty fuels more expensive, encourages energy users to reduce consumption and increase
All right,
efficiency.
two data here that I'd like to say.
Mm-hmm.
One of which is air pollution.
Mm-hmm.
According to the World Health Organization, is the single biggest killer of people.
We've talked about that.
And it kills
Absolutely.
people. Outdoor air pollution alone kills people at a rate of about 1 every 8.5 or 8 3/4 seconds, according to them. And the second thing is the accompanying medical bills cost the average American. This is not the average family; it's the average person, $680 per year.
You don't think about that.
You don't think about that, and you don't see it. A lot of people say, well, wait a minute, I'm just one person, I live by myself, I don't have any health issues, I'm not paying anything for medical expenses. Sorry, you are. You're paying for medical insurance, you're paying for taxes. It all comes out, and your taxes are higher, your insurance is higher. The cost of doing business is higher because of higher insurance costs.
So you're still paying for it.
You're paying for it, absolutely, and it's on average $680. And the person who pays the medical bills, you know, the parents of the kid who's got asthma, they are you know, it's kind of callous, I think, to say I'm not getting sick. I don't pay that bill, because who's being hurt? The person with emphysema, the kid with asthma, the person who's got lung cancer, the person with a heart condition, the person with circulatory distress, liver disease. You know, there are a bunch of people who are paying for this, and they're just not fair. But let's escape.
A quick takeaway here.
Oh, okay.
About half of Massachusetts' greenhouse gas emissions comes from burning oil and natural gas to heat buildings.
Half of
Half of them.
well, a lot of the rest comes from automobiles and trucks.
Probably the other half.
Very close, yeah. Okay. So our next item that's up here is from vtdigger.org. And I have not heard what happened as a result of this. And I think nobody knows yet, because today is Thursday. And Thursday
They're
is...
supposed to deal with it today.
They're supposed to deal with it today.
What are they supposed to deal with, George?
Well, here we go.
Veto session set.
Yes.
After Shumlin nixes energy siting bill.
Okay, today being the 9th of June, the governor of Vermont, Governor Shumlin, vetoed a bill supporters hoped would give communities more say over siting renewable energy projects and bring new sound limits on wind turbines. He said last-minute amendments to the bill would unacceptably slow or halt renewable energy development.
Well, I think what was going on, this was a kind of a stealth move to defeat wind power.
Yes, and
they
industrial.
did it in the last minute in the legislature,
Yeah.
and everybody says, I got to get to lunch, I'm going to vote for this.
Yeah, well, it was not just wind power, it was also, utility scale solar.
Yeah. It was all,
And the truth of the matter is, we can
you
get...
can look at this stuff.
Yeah, we can get a lot of our energy from rooftop solar, but we can't get all of it. And in order to be able to deal with climate change and health problems, air pollution, we're going to have to get our transportation from electricity and our heat from electricity. And that means
Here we are.
we're going to have to increase our electric demand by a factor of 2.5 to 3, even with efficiency.
Well, we can generate it ourselves or we can buy it from Canada.
Yes, or buy it from Michigan or something.
Or something,
But you know, why do people want the money to flow out of the Vermont economy? And the reasons...
People who want it to flow out of the Vermont economy aren't part of the Vermont economy.
Yes, I suppose that's true. Okay, are we done with that one?
Well, there's a lot to talk about
There
here,
sure is.
But we could be talking about it for the rest of the show.
We could be.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
And we'll see. Watch the news tonight. 'Cause
Yes,
you're gonna hear
absolutely.
About it tonight.
Well, again, tonight is June 9th, so you know, anytime
You'll hear about
after
it
June,
tomorrow.
you'll hear about it on June 10th, June 9th, June 10th, and by the time we have our next show, it'll be old news. Okay, this is from Science Alert. We will undoubtedly cover it in the next show, though. The next item is from Science Alert.
Renewable energy now supplies almost a quarter of the world's power needs.
Yeah, for electric power. Last year was a huge 12 months for renewable energy, with a new global status report on clean energy highlighting how 2015 was a record year for the industry, including the revelation that renewable energy can now satisfy nearly a quarter of the world's power demands.
No, that's immediate.
That's right now. And of course, we started this show out with a reference to 19.2% in the United States, which means the United States is behind
the
rest of the world. And the reason why the United States is behind the rest of the world is because the Chinese are investing money and we're twice as fast as we are. And of course, $1 in China will get you more renewable energy than $1 in the United States because of a difference in wages and things of that nature. So the United States is falling behind, and it is putting us behind commercially. It is also putting us behind militarily, and it's not good. It's putting us behind in terms of environmental damage. So.
It's the militarily thing that's got the investors worried.
What do you mean?
Well, if we fall too far behind militarily, we're on thin ice with China.
Well, not only that.
We can't bully these guys if we're not strong.
Not only that, but the commercial aspect of this means that the Chinese will have very cheap power in the future compared to ours.
Yeah. And they'll be able to utilize that to manufacture.
And they'll have security for that power because it's local. And if we're going to be, I know that there are politicians who say frack and drill and dig for coal, but the truth of the matter is they're basically telling the United States that we have been a great nation because we had the world's best manufacturers of manual typewriters and buggy whips. And it's just not going to take us into going to the past, particularly that past, is not going to take us to the future.
There's a sentence here that sort of covers that.
Yeah.
The renewables train is barreling down the tracks.
Yes.
But it's running on 20th century infrastructure. A system based on outdated thinking where conventional baseload is generated by fossil fuels and nuclear power.
Yes.
To accelerate the transition to a healthier, more secure, and climate-safe future, we need to build the equivalent of a high-speed rail network.
Well, the truth is, if we go back to the microgrids, we don't even need that. We can do it locally.
That's part of the answer, really.
Yeah, we can do it locally. And a town, for example, a town that has microgrids and has power available to it in a massive grid failure, which happens every once in a while. There have been 4 times in my life when I have gone upwards of a week without power because of a storm. And the federal government warned us twice, different organizations dealing with 2 different problems in 1 week about a year and a half ago, that the entire U.S. grid system could go down for a period of 1.5 to 3.5 years. And, that's not good for business.
It's pretty vulnerable, not only to domestic stuff, but crazy stuff like emissions from the sun.
Right. And this is, Europeans have got a hardened grid, about 40%, 50% hardened. We don't have any hardening to our grid at all, as far as I know.
If some of these huge transformers that we need to make the grid work fail, they're not available on the shelf.
Yes.
Someone's got to sit down and build them, and that someone isn't going to be located in the United States
because we don't have a factory.
Knows how to do it.
Yeah. We have to order these things from India, and what happens when the world gets hit by a coronal emission? Everybody gets fried, in some parts of the world more than others, but the factories in India that are making these transformers are going to be run by people who snicker at the United States because we have been so mean to them over the years and decide
where are they going to get the power to run too?
Well, yeah.
A whole bunch of Indians on bicycle generator sets.
But the thing is, they're going to need to get those transformers built, and they aren't going to get to the United States first.
Yeah, you're right there.
So Okay, we're up to Wednesday, June 8th.
We're moving along.
Yep. And
Uruguay.
this is from the Latin American Herald Tribune.
Yeah, that's still around, isn't it? Uruguay is generating 98% of electricity from renewables.
How about that? So far
There's
this
a picture
year.
of a hydro dam
In Uruguay.
In Uruguay.
Yeah.
And I'll bring that
And it's an
one up.
old dam, but it works. So far this year, 98% of Uruguay's electricity has come from sources of renewable energy, according to the president of the state-run electric company, UTE. The announcement came at a meeting of business owners, executives, and investors in the energy sector. Now, this is interesting because Uruguay is just one Latin American country
And it's
that has...
landlocked.
Well, no, Uruguay is not landlocked. You're thinking of Paraguay.
Yeah, okay.
And Paraguay...
I always confuse the
Yeah,
two. What wonder
a
why?
lot of people do. Paraguay produces about 1,000% of the power that it needs from renewable sources. And the reason is because it's got
So it's
huge
exporting.
dams. It's exporting power to Argentina and to Brazil. So the people in Paraguay are saying, you know, renewable energy, what are you talking about? But here in...
Got renewable.
It's renewable. Here in Uruguay, which is flatter, this is across the La Plata estuary from Argentina. It's flatter, and so they don't have anything like the hydro power that's available in Paraguay. But you know, they've got these dams, and they've got other things too. They've got wind power and solar that they've been installing in addition to the dams, and that's brought
They
them up.
have been investing in
They
this
have
stuff. They have been for years, and it's coming
Right.
to fruition.
And Costa Rica is 99%
Yeah,
renewable.
we talked about that, yeah.
And you know, this is something that's Chile is moving very aggressively in the direction of renewable power. A lot of this is because they save an enormous amount of money by doing this.
Well, this is what Uruguay has done. They got hydro dams representing half of the current supply.
Right.
Okay, wind and solar contribute another 40%.
There you go.
There you go. And then additional 8% from biomass.
From biomass.
Waste from rice crops, sawmills, wood processing.
Right. The biomass, I think you've got to be careful of because it can be very polluting, and it.
You're right, but it can and should be done right.
If it's
Is it
done
being
right,
done
it
right?
can
We
be
don't
very.
know.
If it's done right, it's very clean.
Yep.
If it's not done right, it's
we
very
talked about
polluting.
that.
Yeah, we have. And our last item
The last item, this is an interesting
is from the
one.
Jamaica Observer, and I love this. It's an opinion
Can
piece.
wind and solar make us rich?
With low-cost electricity storage, Jamaica could cut electric costs by 60%, while cutting costs for imported fossil fuels by $100 million every month. Finally, free at last, economic independence comes 50 years after political independence. This is a country that is shipping 60 million or 80 million? I mean 600 million or 800 million. Do you remember?
I don't have that number.
It was one or the other. They were
don't have
shipping
that.
something in excess of $600 million a year out of their economy. That meant that they had to figure out where to get $600 million a year. In
And
order
they're
to
saying
pay,
we can save it.
yeah, in order to pay for fossil fuels. Now, they've got this situation developing where they don't have to pay for fossil fuels. Wow, we could do that in Vermont.
I don't
But
think it's there yet. I mean, that's what
they're
this
not-
article was all about.
Yeah.
The guy it's an editorial,
Yes,
kind of a rant.
right, it's
And
a
the guy
rant.
is saying, this is what we got to do, Jamaica.
Right.
And we can do it.
And they can do it. And the fact of the matter is, the storage solutions are there now. They could do this.
They're looking at cheap storage, and that is going to be pumped storage kind of
Pump storage
hydro.
is one way to do it, but we're seeing battery technology costs just going down and down and down. And
Absolutely.
And the vanadium flow battery that we mentioned early in this article, in this show, in fact, I think it was the first thing in the show, is just one solution.
Well, as I've said many times on this show, there's a lot of very smart people
There are
working on
indeed.
stuff like this.
There are
all
indeed.
around the world.
All around the world.
And some of them are going to hit the nail on the head.
Well, we're kind of at the end of our hour, so I think we should say goodbye.
Well, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, folks.
Have a nice week.
I wonder how gentle rains can fall.